Namaste nerds, this is Navanad with the second and final part of the Marwyn Budget MILF Storm primer. Just gonna start running out some practice hands and see what's what. Yeah, this is about as good as we can hope for. Let's draw our first card. Okay, that is a little bit better. Yeah, this is real good. This is the kind of starting hand we're looking for. So we're going to start off by exiling that, and we're going to look at 5 cards, right? Yeah, 5 cards for free. But we'll just keep this little guy here. And then our first play is going to be, oh, we can just do first turn 1 Marwyn. This is busted. This is another advantage that Marwyn has over Selvala, is Marwyn you can cast for 2 colorless and a green, so your Soul Ring starts are a lot better. Alright, so we'll exile the Simian Spirit Guide, and we will get our turn 1 Marwyn. Nice way to start. Nice way to start the video. I almost just restarted. That would have sucked. Okay, then we'll go next turn. Is there anything else we can do here? No. Next turn, we're going to play out our land. Since the original video, I've made some tweaks to the deck, taken some things out, added some things. It's still at $100. But Genesis Wave was another payoff I thought would be good in the deck when I saw that it had been reprinted down to like 50 cents. So this is a good way to end the game here. Let's see. So we're going to go, I want to get our dorks in play. We'll go, so we've got 3 mana. This is going to buff our Marwyn. We've got 2 mana floating. Wait. Just 2 colorless. Okay. Play this out. We've got 1 colorless floating. We're going to buff our Marwyn and draw a card. Okay, and what we have, 1 colorless and a non-summoning sick Marwyn, so we've got enough to play out our Temur Sabertooth. Okay, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3 mana with our 1 floating. We're going to put out our Temur Sabertooth, move to our next turn. So I think, well, we'll start with land for turn. I don't think there's any reason to not run this guy out. It does pump Marwyn, so we're not really losing any mana on the deal. So now our Marwyn has 4 power, and this is going to be this is probably not the practice hand I would have asked for the very first one, because it's the most complicated combo. But it's a line you should become familiar with if you're going to play the deck. So we're going to tap this to play Wirewood Symbiote. Now, Wirewood Symbiote allows us to return an elf to our hand to untap a creature, but you can only do it 1 time per turn. Okay, so this is what this is going to look like. We're going to tap Marwyn for 4 mana. Then we're going to return an elf to our hand to untap Marwyn. That's using the Wirewood Symbiote's ability. Okay, now we're going to tap Marwyn for 4 mana. Is there a mana counter up here? So we're going to use 2 of the mana to return the Wirewood Symbiote to hand with our Temur Sabertooth. Then we're going to use 1 of the mana to recast this, and 1 of the mana to recast this. So that's all of our mana. But this is an elf, so that is going to buff Marwyn. Now we're going to use the Wirewood again because it's a new game object that went to our hand and came back into play. So it's a different Wirewood Symbiote according to the rules of the game. We're going to activate it again, or really activate it for the first time because it's a new object, by returning an elf to our hand to untap a creature. That's going to be Marwyn. We're going to tap Marwyn for 5 mana. And we were able to do this last time with 4, so obviously when we do it this time with 5, we're going to still have 1 mana floating. So we will use the Temur Sabertooth to bounce this for 2 mana. Then we're going to use our 2 floating mana to cast both of these. When we cast this, we're going to buff Marwyn, and then we're going to kind of just keep repeating this. We'll return this to our hand using the Wirewood's ability to untap a creature. We're going to use now 6 mana, 2 of it to bounce this, and we're bouncing that and replaying it so that we can activate its ability again. So we're going to keep doing this little loop. We're in an infinite mana loop here, and we can infinitely buff our Marwyn. And this is just a game-winning situation. We've actually just goldfished a turn 3 on a $100 deck. Pretty good. The ways that we could go about this is by like making enough mana where we can cast this new include Genesis Wave, and we reveal like the top, say, 80 cards from our deck and just put them into play. The whole deck is basically permanent, so you're going to put like 70 permanents into play. And in there somewhere, you're going to find a way to give your team haste and win the game. Or if you didn't have the Genesis Wave, once you get to enough mana, you can just start using the Temur Sabertooth to bounce the Elvish Visionary and then cast it and then draw a card. And you can just do that until you draw through your deck and find a way to win. We went over the actual ways to end the game in the first video, so we're not going to do that here, but that's the very first one we've ran, and that is a turn 3 goldfish on $100 MILF Storm. Let's go to a second hand. Is this a keeper? Nope, so we're going to go to our second 7. Not close. We're going to go to a 6. You can't be afraid to mulligan and mulligan aggressively in this deck. Okay, so this is interesting. Now, if this were a 7, I would be pitching this, but being that it is a 6, I think we're going to keep this. Okay, then we're going to draw for turn. Rishkar's Expertise, sure, why not? Now, this is not going to be your classic turn 2 Marwyn start, unfortunately. But I think it'll be fast enough if we can just draw another land. We're kind of wishing I hadn't bottomed that land. Now, I didn't have any mana dorks or anything else to supplement my mana. That probably was a mistake. Oh, wow. Bad news. Well, we run out our dork. And there's the land. Let's see what we can make happen on our turn 5. Okay, we're going to use our Invigorate, I think. Wait, if we're going to do both of these, we want to make sure that we scale up first. So let's go scale up, which is going to turn our Marwyn into a 6/4 base power toughness. And then we're going to use our Invigorate, which gives target creature +4/+4, so that's going to make our Marwyn a 10 powered creature. So we're going to be able to tap that for 10 and pretty easily win the game here on turn 5. And you know, there's different ways to do it. We could start off by casting Rishkar's Expertise and draw 10 cards and just see where that takes us, which it should take us, you know, someplace. But we've got 10 mana. We could do Tooth and Nail and entwine it to get our Ashaya and our Quirion Ranger both into play, which is an infinite mana loop, and we could win the game that way. Or we could do the Temur Sabertooth. Well, we could do the same line we did last game, actually. We could put our Sabertooth down, and then we could go into this loop where we're continually bouncing the Elf with the Wirewood, and then bouncing the Wirewood with the Temur, untapping our 10 mana Selvala, and go infinite mana that way. And at whatever point we decide, we can play the Wirewood symbiote out and find an Elf, and then bounce it to our hand with all of our mana, and play it again, find another Elf, play it again, so on and so forth. Get infinite mana, we can Tooth and Nail for, I don't know, one of the infinite mana payoffs, like Duskwatch Recruiter, which would let us put all of our creatures into play. And the other creature might be, doesn't even matter. Let's just say, well, you're going to get all of your creatures. It literally doesn't matter. So that's a turn 5. We missed, we not only didn't have our turn 2 Selvala, but we also missed our 3rd land. So that wasn't great, but I mean, not bad, right? So let's go to the next game. Oops, not next turn, next game. If we had Umbral Mantle, that would have been another way we could have won. Let's go to a third hand. This is not turn 2 Marwyn. Second 7. Yeah, this will work. So we're going to keep our second 7 here. We're going to draw our card for turn. We're going to play a land. I think we'll wait. It's hard to know sometimes whether you want to just use your mana efficiently and just run out the 1-drop that isn't a mana dork on turn 1, or wait until you have Marwyn out because it makes Marwyn bigger. And I think without doing the math, it seems like we probably want to hold off on this guy. So we're just going to land and pass. And we're going to turn 2 exile Simian Spirit Guide. I'm sorry, Elvish Spirit Guide for our turn 2 Marwyn. Then we're going to go to next turn. Land for turn. Okay, this is turn 3. I'm trying to look and see if there's a line. I don't think so. I think we're going to have to wait until our next turn. So we'll go play out. Really, these are the two. So that's a elf, so it's going to pump Marwyn. That's an elf, so it's going to pump Marwyn. I mean, we're actually pretty close, but we're not quite there. Then we've got 3 mana, so we can go 1, 2, 3. We can cast our little elf tutor guy here, Wirewood Herald, and we can find a... we'll probably just go for the Quirion Ranger. So this is going to tutor up our Quirion Ranger. It is an elf, so that's going to pump Marwyn. So let's go library, view all. We want the Q Ranger. That's going to go to our hand, close and shuffle. And we have 1 floating because that was 3. So there's our 1 floating. That's also going to pump up Marwyn. This is actually starting to look promising on a turn 3 here. Yeah, I think in fact, I think we've got it. So we would go return a forest to our hand to untap a creature. Then we could pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. 3 of it here. This equips for free. We've got 2 mana floating. Equip that. We're going to put the 3rd mana into our mana pool. And we're going to use the 3 mana to untap Marwyn with Umbral Mantle. And that's going to make her +2/+2 until end of turn. So she's going to be up to a 7/7. We will tap her for 7 mana. We will untap her with the Umbral Mantle. And rinse and repeat over and over until we get this thing as big and nasty as we want her to be. And then once she's a 30/30, then we're going to, well, there's different things, but we can easily, the easy thing to do would be just to play the Staff of Domination and sink our infinite mana into using the staff's ability to draw a card and untap itself, and draw a card and untap itself. Yeah, so that's a turn 3. So we draw our deck with infinite mana, just find a way to give our dudes haste, and then we could actually move the staff. We could move the staff around to whatever creatures that we put into play that have tap abilities once we've given them all haste until end of turn, and then we could pump our team with the Umbral Mantle and win the game that way. So that is actually another turn 3 win. And these turn 3 wins, like, they're sometimes not obvious. Like, I actually was looking at the board and thought I was going to have to wait until turn 4 to go for it. But that's going to be just the difference between having some experience on these kinds of decks and not having any experience. I haven't played Marwyn, but I've played Selvala a bit. And it's really, really similar. So let's go to the next hand. I'm going to restart. So that was another turn 3. So it went turn 3, turn 5, turn 3. And that was on a multi-6, I believe. No, that was a 7. Okay. And we're going to restart. And did we finally get a keeper on turn? Yeah, I think this is close, man. Jeez, oh Pete, it's so close. We've got our combo piece. We've got a way to potentially get a turn 2 Marwyn, but it would depend upon us actually hitting a land drop in our top 2, which is definitely not a given. On a second 7, I think I'd be a little bit more tempted by this. But let's just go to a second 7. Okay, Soul Ring's usually pretty good. Hand is not great. Honestly, the hand is not great. I think it'll do, though. So we're going to draw for turn. Damn. Was really hoping for a land. Next turn. Jeez, oh Pete's. Well, we got our turn 2 Marwyn, but we'd really like to have some mana. I don't know. I mean, we've got enough pump spells that we should be able to get there. Next turn. Finally. So, is this a turn 3 again? I think it's a turn 3. This is going to be a little convoluted. We're going to start the same way we started the game 1, I think. We're going to scale Marwyn up, so she's going to be a 6/4. Hit her with the Invigorate, so she's going to be a 10 power elf. 10 power Marwyn taps for 10 mana. Then we can just use 5 mana to cast Shared Summons. So we'll have 5 mana floating and then 3 in reserve. So the 5 mana Shared Summons allows us to find 2 creatures. And we're going to do the usual. This is what we'll usually want to do. Get a Shia. We could get cute and get Eternal Witness to pop the Shared Summons back to hand. There's all kinds of things we could do along those lines, but let's just keep this simple. Just go Quirion Ranger to hand. Close and shuffle. Alright, so we've got 5 mana floating. We're going to use 5 mana to cast a Shia, so now all of our dudes are forests. We're going to use 1 mana. You know what? Let's do that a little different. Let's keep 2 green mana. So we tap this for 2 of the 5. So now we're going to use, let's see, 1 of those green mana on Quirion Ranger. And so we're set up now. Here's the deal, right? This is probably the main combo of the deck. A Shia makes all your creatures forests. Quirion Ranger allows you to return a forest you control to your hand to untap a creature. Well, if she is a forest, then you can use herself to return her to untap a creature. And so we're going to, let's just say do that. We're going to use her ability to send a forest to our hand. She is a forest, to untap a creature. We're going to tap that creature for 10 mana. We're going to play her, still having 9 floating, and we're going to pump Marwyn because she is an elf. And we normally can only use her ability once per turn, but since we're bouncing her to our hand and replaying her, the game sees her as a new object. And so we can keep doing this infinitely, getting our Marwyn bigger and bigger and adding more and more mana to our mana pool. And then, you can do just anything here. We can, let's see, how would we want to win the game? We can Shared Summons, or let's see, maybe we use, honestly it doesn't matter, but what do we want to do? Something fun. I'm trying to think of a line that we haven't shown off. Well, I don't want to make this video too awful long. So we'll just use the Uncage the Menagerie and find up to 4 creatures with power 4 or greater. Is that what we want to do? We could do, we're not going to get cute. We're just going to do that. And it really doesn't matter what the other options are. I think we just want the Temur Sabertooth for 1. As long as, we could go through and get whatever other 4-drops. I'm not really, they're escaping me at the moment what 4-drops we might have access to in the deck. Not many. But really, the only thing that matters is that we have the Temur Sabertooth. Okay, and then we can cast Elvish Visionary, draw a card, and then We can bounce that to our hand with Temur. Play it again, draw a card. So now we're in a situation with infinite mana, and we have infinite card draw. If we want, we can just Summoner's Pact and find just something to buff our team, like Azuri. Then we play out our Azuri, play out all of our other creatures. We can infinitely buff our team with Azuri and kill everybody. We need a haste enabler, but we've got a Shaya out, so we can get through our infinite card draw. Eventually we're going to hit Destiny Spinner, and so we'll grab Destiny Spinner, and we're eventually going to hit Crashing Drawbridge. Show you how this little trick works. Okay, so we're drawing through our deck. We pile, I don't know, 20-30 creatures into the battlefield. We play Destiny Spinner. We play Crashing Drawbridge. We pump up all of our dudes and give them trample. In fact, just this is enough creatures to do the job. So we're going to pump up all of our creatures infinitely. So we'll make them all 1 billion power toughness, and they get trample until end of turn. Now, here's the trick for, this is one of the tricks for assembling haste, like to haste enable your team. So Destiny Spinner obviously is mainly in the deck. So, you know, as a thwart to blue, makes it so our creatures and enchantments can't be countered, which is good. But the other big thing, like one of the main reasons that we like Destiny Spinner in this deck is we can use her to target a land, and it becomes an XX with trample and, importantly, haste. So how many enchantments do we have? We just have the one. We've got Destiny Spinner. She is an enchantment. But what we're going to do is pay 4 mana to turn Crashing Drawbridge into a 1/1 with haste. Then we're going to tap this and give our team haste and kill everybody. So that maybe we'll take a look at one more hand. But surely you guys are at least starting to get the feel for the deck, hopefully. Okay, this is our second 7. That's probably a keep. So we'll go, oh, that's great. So we're going to go. So this is kind of tricky. This is close because the question here is, do we want to run out the wild growth first so that once we play our Marwyn, we can cast the Arbor Elf and give our Marwyn +1/+1? Or if we want to play out the Arbor Elf first, so then our second turn, we can cast the wild growth, and then we could use the Arbor Elf so that on turn 2 we'd have 4 mana instead of just 3 mana. I actually don't know that there's much that we're going to want to do with the extra 1 mana. So I think in this particular case, it's better to save our elf to pump our Marwyn, probably. So our turn 1 play is just going to be wild growth on the forest. Go to next turn. Boy, we've been getting that invigorate a lot. Now there are other versions of that card in the deck, but just interesting how it has come up so much. All right, so turn 2 Marwyn. Okay, next turn. Okay, what do we want to do here? I'm gonna go. Maybe we start off by casting our elf, which pumps Marwyn. So what can we do here? We could just run out our Azuri, wait, get set up for next turn. We can, yeah, I mean, if we're not in a real big hurry, there's usually at like this budget level, there's usually no huge hurry to try to like win the game on turn 3, realistically. So maybe we just go 1, so that's 2, 3, we've got 4, 5 mana. So we can go play out this. which is an elf. In fact, if we would have done that first, just tapping the 3 mana here, played that, then we'd have 3 mana here left. We could tap 3. It's not going to make any difference. But I wonder if we could actually, we could go for a storm off right here on turn 3. Well, let's just play it safe. Play out this guy, go to our next turn. Alright, now let's go ahead and cast the Invigorate, making Marwyn a 7 power. And then we will cast maybe Court of Calling. Yeah, let's go 1, 2, and we'll tap 3, 4, 5. I'm counting this as a tap because we're casting our Court of Calling, and it has Convoke. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 5 so far. So what we're looking for, let's go ahead and tap this to Convoke. Okay, so 6, X equals 3. Okay, so we're going to put that in the graveyard, and we are going to go for Hyrax Tower Scout here. Now, actually, technically, it's important that we tap our Marwyn before this guy comes into play. So we'll just kind of keep track of that. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we'll have 7 mana floating. Let's say that we Convoked with, oh, no, that's fine. So 7 mana floating after we get our 3 power worth on the battlefield using Court of Calling. And we're going to get Hyrax Tower Scout. Okay, that doesn't actually go to our hand. It goes to the battlefield, and when it does, it untaps Marwyn. So we have 7 floating, and now we've got an untapped Marwyn. So we can use Kogla. We'll use our 7 mana to cast Kogla. We've got 1 floating. And now we're going to tap Marwyn for 7. That makes 8 mana. We're going to use 2 of that mana to use Kogla's ability to return a human to our hand. Hyrax Tower Scout is a human. So Hyrax Tower Scout returns to hand. And then we're going to use 3 more of the mana to cast it again. That's going to untap Marwyn. So we're in a situation where we have to spend 2 to send this to hand, 3 to put it back into play. So that's 5 mana. But Marwyn is going to be getting untapped every time, and Marwyn taps for 7. So here we're in a situation where we have infinite mana. But this could actually fizzle. Well, I guess not. Realistically, no. We could use the make infinite mana, and then we could come back in here with the Hyrax Tower Scout and untap all of our guys. So let's say we have 1 billion mana. We're going to return this to hand and then cast it again to untap this. Return it to hand. Cast it again to untap this. And then we'll use infinite mana to pump all of our dudes with Azuri Renegade Leader and swing for lethal. Or actually, we had the Duskwatch Recruiter in play, so we really didn't need the Azuri and the Duskwatch. They're kind of redundancy in a way, because we can use our infinite mana to pump into Duskwatch Recruiter to go through the top of our deck, find a creature, put it in play, and just keep doing that over and over until we find the pieces that we need to win the game. So a little bit of overkill here on the turn 4. The deck, I mean, it's a good sign that if you're having overkill, like you're having more than enough to just go off and win the game on turn 4, that you're going to have some turn 3 wins. But we got a little bit of a glimpse at some different lines here. I think that's good enough for now. Hope you enjoyed the video and learned something about the budgetized version of Marwyn MILF Storm. Until next time, word to your mothers, namaste homies, peace out nerds. Until next time, later.